Your thoughts are not facts. And your mind, it's programmable. Let that sink in for a moment. Because if your thoughts aren't facts, that means most of your reality is just a rehearsed illusion. And if your mind is programmable, that means you're either the coder or the product of someone else's code. Most people walk around thinking they're thinking, but really, they're just repeating old loops handed down by family, society, trauma, ego, unexamined, unquestioned, unchallenged. Your mind isn't broken. It's just running a distorted script. Not because it's weak, but because it's been trained that way. Now imagine this. What if you could retrain your thoughts? What if your mind became clear, like still water, unaffected by noise, unbothered by ego, untouched by fear? That's where Stoicism comes in. This isn't just ancient philosophy. It's a battle-tested operating system for thinking clearly, even in a chaotic, emotionally reactive world. For over 2,000 years, Stoic minds, from Marcus Aurelius to Epictetus, have taught us how to spot illusions, break mental traps, and live with sharp clarity and inner control. In this episode, you're going to learn 10 core Stoic principles to think without bias, act without panic, and become the calmest, sharpest person in the room. So if you're tired of overthinking, reacting, and letting emotions hijack your decisions, you're in the right place. Because in the next 60 minutes, you won't just learn how to think clearly, you'll learn how to think coldly, strategically, powerfully. Let's begin. Your mind is clay, and your thoughts are the sculptor. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you're carving something into the walls of your inner world. Not with a chisel, but with repetition. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In modern language, you become what you think about most. Not just emotionally, structurally, your mindset, your reactions, your emotional thresholds, your tolerance for discomfort. All of it is a result of what you feed your mind daily. Let's call this what it truly is: mental nutrition. Most people care more about what they eat than what they think. They'll fast from sugar, go keto, avoid gluten, but their minds filled with anxiety, outrage, distraction, comparison, and self-doubt. And they wonder why they feel spiritually heavy, mentally foggy, emotionally weak. If you consume junk, you become junk. And that applies just as much to thoughts as it does to calories. So here's a dangerous question. What are you feeding your mind daily? Not just the obvious stuff. Not just social media, but the subtle things. The internal loops. The thoughts that circle your head when you wake up. The stories you tell yourself after failure. The expectations you replay before bed. Most people are unaware they're feeding themselves mental garbage every single day. And that garbage becomes architecture. It forms the walls you think inside, the ceilings that limit you, the bars that trap you emotionally, and worst of all, they don't even know they're in a cage. So here's what the Stoics would do. They wouldn't just avoid negativity. They would train their attention like a disciplined warrior. They guarded the input because they knew if you don't guard the gates of your mind, someone else will walk right in and own the place. Let's make this practical. Every day, you're sculpting your mind. The only question is, what shape are you creating? You might be sculpting doubt, sculpting weakness, sculpting overthinking, procrastination, comparison, or you could be sculpting clarity, discipline, self-command, stillness, and that depends on your inputs. So it's time to audit them. Take 7 days and commit to this. Step 1. Identify 3 mental junk foods. Pick 3 specific things that weaken your clarity, drain your peace, or feed negativity. Be brutally honest. It could be that one social account that fuels outrage or envy, the 24/7 news feed that wires your brain for panic, a voice in your life that always brings drama, even your own inner narrative that repeats failure. List them. Write them down. These are the toxins in your mind's bloodstream. Step 2. Eliminate cold turkey. Not less of it. Not limit to 5 minutes. Remove it. Block. Mute. Stop. Cut off the poison. Step 3. Replace with clarity fuel. For each thing you remove, plug in one source of stillness, strength, or wisdom. Read 1 page of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. 10 minutes of silent journaling. Go for a walk with no phone. Listen to a Stoic lecture, not music, while commuting. Sit still for 5 minutes, doing nothing, just breathing. These small switches don't just feel good, they rewire you. When you stop feeding your mind junk, you'll feel the withdrawal, like detoxing from sugar. But behind that discomfort is the mind you've been looking for. It's clearer, more grounded, harder to manipulate, easier to direct. You're no longer a slave to every random stimulus. You're in command, like a general walking through chaos, but never losing composure. And here's the truth. You don't need more information. You need less noise, fewer inputs, cleaner thoughts, quieter mornings, more deliberate repetition. Because every time you repeat a thought, you're grooving it deeper into the structure of your brain. Neuroplasticity isn't just science, it's stoicism in action. You become what you consistently allow to echo. So sculpt carefully. Don't let anxiety carve your clay. Don't let social media shape your frame. Don't let weak voices chip away your resolve. Instead, let your thoughts be chosen, curated, filtered like pure water, fed like clean fuel. The man who controls his thoughts doesn't need to control the world. He's already unshakable. And it starts here, today, with one decision: to feed your mind something worthy, and let that become the architecture of your peace. Your mind is not a public park. It's not open to everything and everyone. It's a castle. And you're the gatekeeper. That means not everything gets to come in. Not every voice gets to echo inside. Not every idea deserves your attention. And definitely, Not every person deserves a front row seat in your mental theater. But here's the problem. Most people live with their gates wide open. They let anyone, any app, any algorithm, any angry voice online march straight into the most sacred part of them, their inner world. They do this all day. Scroll after scroll, click after click, reply after reply. And they wonder why they feel mentally exhausted, emotionally hijacked, and spiritually drained. But Stoics had a name for this kind of carelessness. They called it thonos dianoias, envy of the mind. When your mind wants what others have, feels what others feel, reacts to what others say, you've handed over your gate keys. Now, let's get strategic. If your mind is a castle, you don't just need a wall, you need a ritual, a regular system to clean, protect, and reset your mental environment. Here's one that works: the mental cleanse ritual. Once a week, one full day, no screens, no social media, no news, no YouTube, no TikTok, no texts unless it's an emergency. You can read, you can journal, you can go for a walk, you can sit with your thoughts, uninterrupted. The first time you do it, you'll feel twitchy, like your brain's itching for a dopamine hit. But by the third hour, something shifts. You'll start to hear yourself again. Not the algorithm, not the influencer, not the fear-mongering headline. You. This is how you sharpen your inner voice, by muting everything else for long enough to hear it. Now let's go tactical. Here's a Stoic Gatekeeper checklist. 5 things to block. 5 things to boost. Block news cycles that provoke panic instead of awareness. People who drain your energy without offering value. Notifications designed to interrupt your focus. Negative self-talk loops that serve no purpose. Over-analysis of things you can't control. Boost deep, slow reading, especially of ancient texts. Conversations with people who challenge and elevate you. Time spent in stillness, thinking, not reacting. Consuming content that sharpens your reason. Reflection journaling. Walking. Asking yourself real questions. Because here's the truth: every day, your mind is under siege. There's no neutral ground anymore. Everything you see, hear, scroll, or touch, it's trying to plant something inside your thoughts. So the question is, are you guarding the gate, or are you asleep at the post? The most powerful minds in history weren't the loudest. They were the most disciplined. They knew how to build internal walls, to decide what gets in and what stays out. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. Before the world could speak to him, he spoke to himself. He opened meditations and reminded his soul who it was before the noise. You can do the same. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to know every headline. You don't need to carry every opinion. What you need is control. Not control of the world. Control of your gate. Because once the gate is secure, you can finally hear the silence. And inside that silence, you'll find strength. Let's move to lesson 3. You are not reacting to reality. You are reacting to your interpretation of it. And that interpretation, it's often clouded, distorted, and deeply emotional. Marcus Aurelius warned, if you are pained by anything, it is not the thing itself, but your judgment of it. Seneca put it even clearer, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This is the illusion. You think you're seeing truth, but you're seeing your fears, your wounds, your past experiences painted onto the present. That's why something small like a delayed text or a subtle tone can throw your whole day off. You don't just see the moment, you fill it with meaning. You assume rejection. You assume disrespect. You assume abandonment. And once the story begins, you spiral. The Stoics trained themselves to break this pattern, not by suppressing emotion, but by creating distance from it. Here's how you do it. It's called the emotional distance filter, and it works like this. Whenever something stirs, a strong emotional charge, you pause. You don't reply. You don't explain. You don't try to fix it. You simply observe. You tell yourself, this is just a reaction. It's not the whole picture. Think of it like looking at a painting from 2 inches away. Everything seems chaotic. But if you step back, you begin to see the full image. Emotional distance is that step back. Now, how do you train this? You need a ritual, a mental practice. And here's one of the most powerful Stoic tools, the 2-column journal. Draw a line down the page. On the left, write emotion. On the right, what's actually true. Start with the raw feeling, I feel disrespected. I feel forgotten. I feel like I failed. I feel like they don't care. Then pause. Breathe. Step back. Now move to the right side. Ask yourself, what are the actual facts you might write? They didn't respond to my message. They haven't spoken to me yet. I made one mistake today. I haven't communicated how I feel. This is the moment you cut through illusion. You stop letting emotion dictate your reality, and you start reclaiming judgment. Because truth isn't always loud. Truth doesn't come from panic. Truth lives in the pause. When Marcus journaled each night, he wasn't just venting. He was training his perception. He would ask, is this thing actually bad? Or have I just labeled it as bad? Is this urgent, or has my fear made it feel urgent? That kind of questioning rewires your brain. You stop overreacting. You stop misreading people. You stop sabotaging peace. And instead, you become steady, decisive, unshakable. Most people spend their lives defending illusions. You see through them. You don't confuse silence with rejection. You don't confuse discomfort with danger. You don't confuse emotion with truth. And that's power. Because when you can pause, when you can filter, when you can separate the fog from the facts, you become immune to manipulation by others and by your own mind. So next time a moment hits hard, before you react, pause. Before you spiral, breathe. Before you assume, write it down. Emotion on the left, truth on the right. Let what remains guide your next move. That's Stoic clarity. That's emotional sovereignty. And that's how you break free from illusions. While everyone else stays lost in them, let's move on to something just as powerful. Lesson 4. Stop over-explaining. Success is a soft trap. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And before you know it, you start believing the illusion that you made it happen, that you deserve more, that you are above correction, above stillness, above humility. That's the first step toward internal collapse. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in human history, wrote in his journal, "You are just a soul, carrying a corpse." Why would an emperor say that? Because he knew power creates illusion. Praise distorts self-perception. And ego is silent until it wins. And once it wins, you lose clarity. You stop reflecting. You start assuming. You stop listening. You start performing. You confuse momentum with mastery. Here's the danger: ego doesn't show up with arrogance. It shows up with urgency, with defensiveness, with the need to be recognized, with the fear of looking small. And the moment you need to look strong, you've already lost your strength. The Stoics believed, the stronger the man, the quieter, the posture. So, how do you practice this? There's a simple but brutal Stoic tool. It's called the Success Journal, and it flips the entire modern mindset upside down. Here's what you do. Each time something goes well, a win at work, a compliment, a result you're proud of, you write down 3 reasons that success didn't belong entirely to you. Example: because someone gave me an opportunity I didn't earn. Because I had energy today and not everyone does. Because someone behind the scenes covered for me. This doesn't destroy confidence. It purifies it. It trains your ego to stay in its place. Because the truth is, the moment you think you are the cause of everything good, you become blind to the things keeping you from collapse. Marcus reminded himself daily, don't think too highly of yourself. You are a breath away from being dust. Seneca warned, the higher we climb, the more we must watch our step. They weren't being poetic. They were being tactical. Because nothing disorients a man faster than praise. Nothing softens a warrior faster than applause. And nothing makes a leader more fragile than the absence of self-examination. So here's the application. Take a post-it note. Write 1 sentence. Something that brings your soul back to ground level. A few examples. You are not as important as your ego wants you to believe. Stay sharp. You're replaceable. Don't seek credit. Seek clarity. Don't perform. Just serve. They'll forget your name. Stay humble. Now put it in front of you, where your eyes drift when you're tired, where your pride hides when you feel unseen. Let that sentence burn the illusion out of you. Because the goal is not to be praised, it's to be grounded. It's to be immune to the noise. To walk into a room and need nothing. That's Stoic poise. That's quiet dominance. That's strength without announcement. The more successful you become, the more quiet you must train yourself to be. Because real power doesn't need to raise its voice. It just needs to remain intact. Let's move on. To a deeper layer of inner control. Lesson 5. Burn the scripts. The most dangerous thing in the room is the man who thinks he knows. He stops asking. He stops noticing. He stops adjusting. And slowly, he becomes blind to everything that's changing around him. Seneca warned, "You learn as long as you live if you are willing to admit that you don't know." But most people aren't. Because I don't know feels weak, feels vulnerable, feels small. But to the Stoics, it's the exact opposite. I don't know is not weakness. It's awareness. It's clarity. It's the first move toward power. Because when you admit you don't know, you make space for truth to enter. And that space, that's where transformation lives. Most people walk around rehearsing answers. The Stoic walks around collecting questions. There's a ritual you can build from this. It's called the beginner's mind ritual. And it's deceptively simple. Each morning, before the noise begins, you ask one question you've never asked before. Just one. But it has to make you uncomfortable. It could be, why do I react this way when I'm ignored? What do I believe about love that might be false? What am I pretending not to notice in my own behavior? What have I repeated for years, but never examined? You write it down. You sit with it. Not to fix it. Not to answer it. But to be honest about it. Because this is where the Stoic mind gets sharp. Not by collecting facts, but by confronting illusions. And here's the next step. Create a list. Call it your not knowing list. It's not a weakness inventory. It's a truth map. Start writing down everything you feel the urge to pretend you know. How to handle conflict without anger. How to stay grounded when I'm praised. How to deal with being alone. How to listen without needing to reply. How to rest without guilt. This isn't therapy. This is training. Because the Stoic man doesn't fear what he doesn't know. He fears becoming numb to it. The moment you stop questioning, you stop seeing. And when you stop seeing, you lose the sharpness that once made you powerful. Even Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, philosopher, and general wrote things like, "Am I truly living according to nature, or am I just playing a role?" He didn't assume wisdom. He hunted it. Questioned himself, not to tear himself down, but to stay awake. That's the real power of I don't know. It keeps you dangerous. It keeps you humble. It keeps you free. Because once you think you've arrived, you stop walking. And the Stoic path, it's not a place. It's a posture. Always adjusting. Always observing. Always refining. So here's the challenge. Start your mornings, not with a plan, but with a question. And don't seek an answer. Seek an edge. That edge is awareness. That edge is restraint. That edge is strength without noise. And the man who holds that edge, he never stops learning. Never stops humbling. Never stops rising. Let's bring this all together with the final reminder. Lesson 6. Never let the world make you soft. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." That's it. That's the whole map. The Stoic blueprint. Not some ancient metaphor, but a practical line between inner freedom and constant suffering. Because, let's be honest, most people live exhausted. Not because life is hard, but because they're wrestling with things they were never meant to touch. The opinions of others, the timing of outcomes, the past, the weather, their ex, their reputation. They spend their energy in places their hands can't reach, while their own mind, the only true territory, is left untended, unchecked, and overrun. But not the Stoic. The Stoic understands power begins where responsibility begins, and responsibility starts with the question, is this within my control? If the answer is no, then your attention doesn't belong there. Not today. Not ever. This is the mindset that separates weak men from dangerous ones. Let me give you a story. There was a man who ran a company. Every week, he obsessed over the market, checked charts 20 times a day, analyzed trends, followed the news like a religion, and no matter how much he learned, he was anxious, scattered, reactive, because deep down, he was addicted to the illusion of control. Then one day, burned out and frustrated, he sat down with a mentor who asked him a simple question. What's the one thing you can control every day without fail, he thought. Paused and said, my team, my systems, how I respond. The mentor smiled. Then that's where your empire begins. Not in the market, but in your mind. So he changed. Started running a weekly review. Called it the control audit. Every Friday, he wrote down 3 things. One thing he was trying to control that wasn't his to hold. One thing within reach he had been neglecting. One small action that would reclaim his power. He did this for 52 weeks straight. And in that 1 year, his company didn't just grow, it transformed. Not because the market got easier, but because he got clearer. That's the real Stoic strategy. Not to control more, but to control better. And here's the brutal truth. Most people lose battles they never had to fight, because they walked into storms that weren't theirs, argued with people who wouldn't change, chased outcomes they couldn't command, and left their inner walls unguarded. So here's the exercise. Once a week, sit in silence. Do a control audit. Ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now that doesn't belong to me? What am I not controlling that I can? Where can I act with clarity instead of reacting with fear? This practice is simple, but over time, it hardens your mind into steel, because it keeps your focus on what matters: you, your words, your responses, your actions, your standards, your energy. That's your kingdom. That's your battlefield. That's your power. The Stoics didn't believe in chasing peace. They built it by placing their attention exactly where it belonged and refusing to place it anywhere else. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to master the few things that are yours. And if you do, the world can roar. The chaos can rise. The market can collapse. The people can leave, but you'll still be standing calm, clear, composed. Because true power doesn't come from control. It comes from knowing where your control ends and letting go of the rest without apology. That's stoicism. That's strategy. That's freedom. Now, take a deep breath and draw your line. The present moment is the only place where life happens. Marcus Aurelius paraphrased, "Let that sink in for a second. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Right now. This is where your power lives. This is where clarity begins. This is where peace is built." The Stoics knew something that most people still haven't grasped. Time is an illusion until it's gone. And most of us are haunted, not by what's happening, but by what might happen. We call it planning. We call it ambition. But truth is, it's often just mental noise wrapped in noble excuses. You're not overwhelmed because of what's in front of you. You're overwhelmed because your mind is trying to stand in 5 places at once. Let me tell you about a man named Elias. He ran 3 companies, had 2 phones, 10 calendars. His life was organized, optimized, and monetized. But one day, his kid asked him something that shattered his world. "Dad, when are you going to play with me for real?" He froze. Because in that moment, he realized he had been present everywhere, except his own life. So he created a rule: no future talk. 2 hours every week. No calendars. No planning. No talking about next quarter, next trip, next strategy. Just being with his kid, with himself, with life as it was. At first, it felt unnatural, like he was wasting time. But over weeks, something changed. He started hearing the birds again, started tasting food again, started feeling again. And the strangest thing, his productivity didn't drop, it skyrocketed. Because when you're fully here, you bring your full self to what matters. This is what the Stoics meant when they said, "Confine yourself to the present." Marcus Aurelius. They weren't preaching passivity. They were teaching precision. The ability to anchor yourself in now is the ability to remain untouchable by regret, anxiety, and illusion. So here's your tool. The 1-minute presence reset. Once a day, anywhere: subway, hallway, cafe, bathroom. Stop. Close your eyes. Feel your feet. Hear the sound around you. Follow one breath all the way in and all the way out. Just 1 minute. But in that minute, the chaos pauses. Your mind clears and your soul lands. Do it every day. Not as a trend, as a ritual, as a reclaiming of your life. And when you're ready, try this. 2 hours a week of no future talk, no goals, no planning, no chasing. Just sit with your coffee and taste it. Walk without recording it. Be with someone without fixing them. Breathe without tracking your progress. Because the greatest tragedies of life don't happen in the future. They happen when we miss now. The laughter you didn't hear. The sunrise you didn't see. The peace you didn't notice because you were too busy preparing for tomorrow. The Stoics weren't just philosophers, they were warriors of presence. They knew every moment you master becomes a brick in your fortress of inner calm. So start now, not later, not after this video. Now, because the present isn't just a place. It's your true home. Don't let the force of an impression carry you away. Epictetus. This might be one of the most underrated Stoic teachings, but it could save you from years of regret. Because most of the mistakes we make don't come from lack of intelligence. They come from acting too fast on what we think we see. She didn't text back. You assume she's ignoring you. Your friend said something odd. You assume they're turning against you. A coworker looked cold. You assume they're undermining you. One impression. One emotional reaction. One false story. And you're already down the rabbit hole. The Stoics warned us again and again. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Here's the truth. Your first thought is usually the loudest, not the wisest. It's survival mode. It's fear-based. It's ego in disguise. So, instead of trusting it, question it. Let me show you a simple process I teach called pause, observe, rephrase, decide. Pause. The moment you feel a spike, anger, jealousy, panic, don't speak. Don't act. Just breathe. Disengage. Observe. What just happened? What story did your mind instantly build? Is this story based on evidence or just emotion? Rephrase. Turn the assumption into a neutral version. She's ignoring me becomes she hasn't replied yet. I don't know why. He disrespected me becomes he said something unclear. I can ask for clarification. Just that shift pulls you out of your emotional storm and puts you back in command. Decide. Now, with clarity, not impulse, you can respond or not respond, and both will come from strength. Epictetus had a name for this first thought check. Before trusting what your mind screams, test it, probe it, challenge it, because 90% of emotional pain comes not from what is, but from what we imagine. Let me give you a real-world example. A Stoic mentor of mine once told this story. He was waiting for a business deal, confirmation. 3 days. No response. His first impression, they ghosted me. They used me. But instead of reacting, he ran the 4-step check. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Maybe they're delayed. Rephrase. No reply yet. Decide. Wait 2 more days without sending a follow-up. Turns out, the CEO's father had passed away. They weren't ghosting him. They were grieving. If he had acted on that first impression, he would have burned a bridge with a billion-dollar company. This is the power of Stoic delay. Not indecision, but tactical waiting. Because when you slow the moment, you speed up your wisdom. So here's your challenge. Every time you feel something sharp, jealousy, anger, panic, don't trust it right away. Run it through the filter. Pause. Observe. Rephrase. Then decide. You'll save yourself from so many emotional traps. Remember, first impressions are mental reflexes, but power lies in the second response. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. Seneca focus is no longer a luxury. It's a form of rebellion. In a world that monetizes your attention, staying focused is the new Stoic warfare. Every beep, every buzz, every shiny notification is a thief, a tiny, silent intruder, stealing fragments of your mind, until one day you wake up and wonder where your day went, where your decade went, where you went. Seneca, in his quiet brilliance, warned us, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. But what does it mean to truly be somewhere? To fully occupy the moment you're in, not just physically, but psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. Most people think power is loud, fast, chaotic, but real power is quiet, still, deliberate, and it starts with focus. Not multitasking, not responding to everything, but choosing one thing, one effort, one purpose, then protecting it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Let me tell you a story. There was a Stoic entrepreneur. He was drowning in decision fatigue. Emails, teams, markets, updates. He had influence, but no clarity. Activity, but no presence. Until one day, he shut everything off for an hour. No phone, no tabs, just a journal, a pen, and a problem to solve. That hour became the engine of his entire turnaround. Not because he did more, but because he finally saw clearly. Focus isn't about doing everything. It's about choosing the right thing and doing it with no split energy. You don't need a 10-step plan. You need 1 hour a day. Call it your deep focus hour. No social media, no noisy, just you. And the one thing that matters today. And when you finish, don't reach for your phone. Sit, breathe, let your mind return home. That's the Pomodoro Stoic method, 25 minutes of deep, undisturbed focus. 5 minutes of meditation. Not dopamine. No checking messages. No escape. Just breath and awareness. Because silence is not the absence of action, it's the sharpening of it. You think you need more time, but what you really need is more presence. You think you lack motivation, but what you lack is a focused mind. When you master attention, you master perception. When you master perception, you master self. And when you master self, you become untouchable. So ask yourself today, what have I been giving away for free? My peace, my attention, my soul, and what would happen if I took it back? Because in a world designed to distract you, the man who owns his focus owns himself. And that is power. He who speaks little says much. Stoic proverb. We live in the age of broadcast. Everyone talks. Everyone posts. Everyone wants to be heard. But the Stoic doesn't crave noise. E gravis precision. There is a quiet power in not responding, in not explaining, in not showing every angle of who you are. The world rewards overexposure, but respect belongs to those who know how to hold back. Think of restraint like a blade. It's sharp because it's narrow, focused, controlled. The man who could speak, but doesn't. Who could show off, but stays silent. Who could react, but simply watches. That's the man people listen to, because his silence feels intentional, like a loaded weapon that doesn't need to be fired. You don't gain strength by doing more. You gain it by doing less, but better. Not saying everything, just the right things. Most people drown in their own expression. They speak out of fear, react out of ego, post out of emptiness. But the Stoic knows anything that is done to prove something is already weak. So here's a practice: Digital Silence Sunday. 1 day a week. No updates. No replies. No public thoughts. Just stillness. No performance. No explaining. No need to be seen. Let your soul detox from the addiction of visibility. And then each morning, ask yourself, what are the only 3 things worth saying today? Not 10. Not a thread. Just 3. And say them only when they need to be said. Say them with intention. Say them like you mean it once. Then go back into silence. Because the strongest man in the room is not the one who controls the conversation, but the one who doesn't need to. He's not quiet because he's timid. He's quiet because he's anchored. You'll find this man in every room. He's the one people can't quite read but never forget. He doesn't move fast. He moves with clarity. And when he speaks, you feel it in your chest. Not because of volume, but because of restraint. Restraint isn't weakness. It's choice. And choice is freedom. And freedom is power. So, here you are, at the end of 10 lessons. But in reality, it's the beginning of something deeper. You didn't just learn ideas. You sharpened a weapon. Your mind, not to impress, not to dominate, but to command yourself in a world designed to distract you. And that is the rarest kind of power. Let's be clear. A Stoic doesn't seek control. He becomes control, not through force, but through internal architecture. Every principle you've heard is a brick, a foundation, a system that filters life through reason, not reaction. It starts with the inputs, what you consume, what you allow in, because the noise you tolerate becomes the confusion you live in. Then it moves inward. You watch your own mind. You observe before you engage. Because self-awareness precedes all strategy, you strip away unnecessary stories. You simplify the truth. Because clarity is subtractive. And when chaos strikes, you don't flinch. Because your peace isn't situational. It's trained. You stay rooted in this exact moment, not lost in the past, not anxious about what's next. Just present, still, locked in. That's not philosophy. That's posture. And now you practice. Not once, but daily, quietly. Here's the challenge: 10 days. 10 actions. Each day, return to one lesson. Not to remember, but to live it. Write one sentence about how you'll embody it. And then do it. Silently, relentlessly, without performance. Want structure? Here's a tool, the Stoic Mind Tracker. A free PDF, no fluff, no fake motivation, just clean reflection. Simple daily check-ins. One powerful page per day. Think of it as your mirror. For the parts of you the world can't see, but you must master. Download link below. Let's end with this. The clearest mind isn't the smartest. It's the most disciplined, because discipline is the edge you can't fake. It's what makes you unreadable, unshakable, and undeniable. You've built mental clarity. Now it's time to move with power. Next up, Episode 5, Right Action. How Stoics move with power and precision. Because knowing means nothing. Doing is everything. See you in the next chapter. Stay sharp. Stay silent. Stay stoic.